Hello and welcome to Three Questions With. Got my friend Emily with us from EG Creative. Good morning, Emily. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Morning, Kevin. Thanks for having me back.
So I just have some random questions today. So
Sure.
one of the things I'm confused by is people's blogs. So sometimes I see it, NewEnglandB2B.com blog. Sometimes I see blog New England B2B. Does it matter?
It depends. So it's a really good question. And it's not something a lot of people think about. So good going. If you have a relatively small site, I would say, and small is relative, I would say under 1,000 total pages. I know 1,000 sounds like a lot, but when you think of a site like Amazon, it is expansive.
Yep.
If your site is like under 1,000 pages, you really want to have it structured so it's like newenglandb2b.com/blog. And what that does is it includes the blog as part of your main domain. So your homepage and your blog pages, search engines consider them all to be the same entity. Now, sometimes you'll see some businesses, especially really, really, really large companies, like big international enterprises, they'll have, company.com, and then they'll have blog.company.com. Those are actually treated as two different websites by search engines. Now, these companies are so big and they have so many pages on both sites that to them, it doesn't really matter. And it actually helps them. There's certain technologies they can use to manage that high volume of content that work better in that way. But for the average person who's not running a multinational conglomerate, you're going to find it more difficult to get your site to rank for search terms if you have blog dot your website instead of your website/blog. Does that make sense?
Yes. So we would be trying to do that to get the first two positions when someone's searching. Is that why we would want to have the blog as kind of a separate entity?
Yeah. So if you're a really big company and you have the blog as a separate entity, then yes, you could wind up getting the first two positions because you do technically have two websites.
Okay.
The likelihood of that happening is getting slimmer and slimmer because search engines are getting smarter about figuring out when two sites are owned by the same company. But that's something that I expect might change some more in the future. But right now, that's what could happen.
So I got a question about backlinks because
Sure.
I'm dating myself a little bit. I remember 10 years ago, that was the thing. Hey, Emily, put a backlink to my website. I'll put a backlink to yours. Where there was websites like, hey, this is a list of all my friends, and there was 30 or 40 backlinks there. How valuable is that? Is it really as important as we thought it was?
So 10 years ago, totally right. That was a big thing. I remember having to do that for websites I worked for. And at that time, that was a big thing. That was really important. Now it's less so. I at least, I don't know about you, I get messages on LinkedIn sometimes from people saying that they're backlink experts and they can help me get lots of backlinks to my site. Working with those folks can actually hurt your site more than help it in the long run, because the only kinds of backlinks that are really good for your website today in this year are ones that come about through more of a public relations exercise. So if you're paying someone to just make sure you get links on a lot of pages, search engines are wise to that. They know what's up. They're going to figure out what they're doing. They're going to be like, hold on, Kevin went from having like 100 backlinks to now he has 15,000. What is going on here? Something's not right. So what you want to do is, backlinks are great, but you only want to get them from people you really know. Like you give me a site back, you get on your website, you give me a link back to my webpage. And that's great because we know each other and we're associated with each other. Sometimes I answer questions from journalists and bloggers, and my answers go into articles posted around the internet. Those are valuable backlinks because I was engaged in that process. If a news site wants to link back to you, great. If a big company loves what you do and you've worked with them and they want to link back to you, also great. But you don't have to take time out of your day to try to seek them out. Only focus on the ones that come naturally.
Makes sense. So, Emily, people like you use an expression that Google's going to crawl my site. And I go, okay. No idea what that means. What does it mean?
Okay, well, you know how we call the internet, or at least it used to call the internet, the World Wide Web. So think of a spider web. Google has these little, and I say little, they're not really real entities, but they are software programs called bots, crawl bots, and they go out onto the internet and they figure out what web pages exist, how they relate to certain topics, how they relate to each other. So we call it crawling because back when we called it the World Wide Web, the idea was that these bots were like little spiders that would crawl out on the spider web and collect this information, just like a real spider might collect bugs in its web. That term has persisted today, even though we don't say World Wide Web as much. So what happens is these crawl bots or spiders go out and they start with a link, and then they go to the next link and the next link, and then they jump over here and look at a new topic, and they map how all sorts of information fits together. So search engines know that you and I know each other because I'm linked on your website, and I now share these videos that we do on my website. So it's making those kinds of connections. We now have a string of the web drawn between us. But going back to my previous answer, once again, you don't have to worry about amassing the most possible webs, the most possible connections. You just want to get really strong ones based on people you know and by talking about topics that you're an expert in.
Makes sense. So Emily, if people have questions about the first three things we talked about today, what's the best way to reach out to you to learn more?
So you can reach out to me through my website, egcreativecontent.com, or connect with me on LinkedIn by searching Emily Gertenbach. And if you have any other questions about SEO, if you follow me on LinkedIn, I am going to be collecting questions periodically from my followers, and I will be answering them in future videos.
I really like that idea because we all have random questions and you just don't know, like, is it okay to ask? Who should I ask? Or making sure I ask the right person. That's kind of key, Emily, because everyone's got an opinion about things and you're like, but does Emily really know that that's the right answer? Or is that just what Emily thinks, and we're all guilty of that. This was my experience of what I think, but it may have been, 10 years ago, those backlinks were important that we just talked about.
Yep.
Not so much anymore. So, all right, Emily, I appreciate you taking a few minutes to come on the show. And as always, thanks for being my friend.
Thanks, Kevin.